There were no jobs in Indianapolis for Mama, and for 6 months we barely made it on the meager savings. We were penniless and with hardly any food when a tall black angel visiting relatives in Indianapolis came into our lives. He fell instantly in love with my leesome, beautiful mother. His name was Henry Upshaw. I guess I fell as hard for him as he fell for Mama. He took us back to Rockford, Illinois with him, where he owned a cleaning and pressing shop, the only Negro business in downtown Rockford. In those tough Depression times, a Negro in his position was the envy of most Negro men. Henry was religious, ambitious, good and kind. I often wonder what would have happened to my life if I had not been torn from him. He treated Mama like the princess she was. Anything she wanted, he got for her. She was fashion plate all right. Every Sunday when we all three went to church in the gleaming black Dodge, we were an outstanding sight as we walked down the aisle in our fresh, neat clothing. Only the few Negro lawyers and physicians lived as well as we did. Mama was president of several civic clubs. For the first time, we were living the good life. Mama had a dream. She told it to Henry. Like the genie of the lamp, he made it a reality. It was a 4-stall opulent beauty shop. Its chrome gleamed in the black and gold motif. It was located in the heart of the Negro business section, and it flourished from the moment its doors opened. Her clientele was for the most part whores, pimps, and hustlers from the sprawling red light district in Rockford. They were the only ones who always had the money to spend on their appearance. The first time I saw Steve, he was sitting getting his nails manicured in the shop. Mama was smiling into his handsome olive-tinted face as she buffed his nails. I didn't know when I first saw him that he was the pinstripe snake who could poison the core of our lives. I certainly had no inkling that last day at the shop, as live billows of steam hissed from the old pressing machine each time Henry slammed its lid down on the garment. Jesus, it was hot in that little shop, but I loved every minute of it. It was school vacation time for me, and every summer I worked in the shop all day, every day, helping my stepfather. There was really nothing out of the ordinary that day. Nothing during that day that I heard or saw that prepared me for the swift, confusing events that over the weekend would slam my life away from all that was good to all that was bad. Now, looking back, remembering the last day in the shop as clearly as if it were yesterday, my stepfather Henry was unusually quiet. My young mind couldn't grasp his worry, his heartbreak. Even I, a 10-year-old, knew that this huge, ugly black man who had rescued Mama and me from actual starvation back in Indianapolis loved us with all of his great, sensitive heart. I loved Henry with all my heart. He was the only father I had ever really known. He could have saved himself an early death from a broken heart if, instead of falling so madly in love with Mama, he had run as fast as he could away from her. For him, she was brown-skinned murder, a size 12 dress. The last night at 8 o'clock, Dad and I flicked the shop's lights, and as always at closing, in an emotion-muffled voice, he spoke my name, Bobby. I turned toward him and looked up into his face, tense and strained in the pale light from the street lamp. I was confused and shaken when he put his massive hands on my shoulder and drew me to him very tightly, just holding me in the strange, desperate way. My head was pressed against his belt buckle. I could barely hear his low, rapid flow of pitiful words. He said, "Bobby, you know I love you and Mama, don't you?" His stomach muscles were cording, jerking against my cheek. I knew he was going to burst into tears. I said, as I squeezed my arms around his waist, yes, Daddy, we love you too, Daddy. We always will, Daddy." He was trembling as he said, "You and Mama would never leave me. You know, Bobby, I ain't got nobody in the world but you two. I just couldn't go on if you left me alone." I clung tightly to him and said, "Don't worry, Daddy. We'll never leave you. I promise. Honest, Daddy." What a sight we must have seen. The 6'6" black giant and the frail little boy holding on to each other for dear life, crying there in darkness. Yes, poor Henry's fears had foundation. Mama had never loved my stepfather. This kind, wonderful man had only been a tool of convenience. She had fallen in love with the snake, all right. His plan was to cop Mama and make it to the Wendy. The dirty bastard knew I would be excess baggage, but the way Mama was gulping his con, he figured he could get rid of me later. Only after I had become a pimp years later, I know Steve's complete plot and how stupid he really was. Here this fool had a smart square broad with a progressive square John husband infatuated with him. Her business was getting better all the time. Her sucker husband was blindly in love, and the money from his business was wide open to her. If Steve had been clever, he could have stayed right there on top of things and bled a big bankroll from the business in a couple years. Then he could have pulled Mama out there, and with a big bankroll, he could have done anything with her, even turned her out. I tell you, she was that hot for him. She had to be insane over the asshole to walk away from all that potential with only $2,500 in cash. Steve blew it in a Georgia skin game within a week after we got to Chicago.